Welcome to the NFL MVP Momentum Podcast. I'm Sam Holcroft, alongside Payton Thompson. Before we begin, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP, follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. Today we're going to do our Week 14 picks, previews, and our overreactions. Starting off, as usual, with our recap of last week. We'll start at the top of the leaderboard. Zeke finished with 148 points. He went not a good week, 4-9. That's a week that we really needed if we were going to start climbing back into the leaderboard. Did not get his upset nor his double down. Has a record of 121-72 on the year. I am 1 point behind him at 147, also a 121-72 record on the year. I went 9-4. I did not get my upset. Who got their double down this last week. Sean is in third place. He went 10-3 last week. He has 145 points, 123-70 season record. Now has the best record when he had the worst 4 weeks ago. So the matter of a month, he went from last to first in record. And then PT, you're at the bottom with 138 points, 118-75 for a record. And you also went 9-4, and you got your upset. So we already had also one game go down in Thursday Night Football. I was the only one that went with the Patriots. I don't believe in the Steelers. With Kenny Pickett being down, that basically said. So here's the thing. How do you go from one bad quarterback to an even worse quarterback and have no run game and still win? You know, the Patriots defense is low-key slept on. So I went with them for that reason. So I'm the only one that got the point. So Zeke and I are tied at 148 in points. Sean's at 145 and Payton 138. With that would be 14 more games that we will talk about a little bit later. Now we'll move on to our overreaction Monday statements. We'll start off with Zeke's. So Zeke's is the Falcons essentially clinch the NFC South when they win this week. So, I mean, I guess we're already saying that who Zeke has winning this week. So this is probably music to your ears, PT. But with Derek Carr being out probably this week and potentially future weeks, it may not even come down to a Saints-Falcons game in week 16 or 18. If they win this week, that's 2 wins on the Bucs. They already have 1 win on the Saints. They still have the Bears and the Panthers. They have a fairly easy schedule after this. If they win this, you don't have to worry about the Bucs anymore because the Bucs have to outright have a better record than you. They're already going to be 2 games ahead of them. Like, it'd have to take a catastrophic failure to not win the NFC South. So,
yeah, and not to mention that the Falcons. I mean, we have a pretty easy schedule coming up here. I mean, when you have the Bears, I won't say the Colts would be an easy team, but I think it's a very beatable team. And then you have the Panthers as well as the Saints, possibly without Derek Carr, obviously, him being kind of banged up throughout the season. But I think if they're two games behind by the time they play the team they play before us, I feel like they might shut it down because we do own that tiebreaker. So they'd essentially have to win all 3 games, and then we'd have to lose to the Buccaneers. So yeah, I mean, I agree with this take. I think. I said last week if we beat the Jets and then we beat the Buccaneers, I mean, that's going to be huge for us to make the playoffs. And if we can do that, I think that says a lot about our team and coming back from basically, I think, a 3-game losing streak or close to it. It's unfortunate because I feel like the Falcons, if we just win one of those 3 games against teams like the Cardinals, Vikings, Titans, then we could already be in a much better position. But nonetheless, we beat the Jets last week. If we can beat the Bucs this week, sweep them, and then sweep the Panthers as well as possibly get a win against the Bears, then yeah, I mean, it'd be really hard to choke that division.
right. Then moving on to my overreaction. My overreaction, do not count the Bengals out. When Joe Burrow went down a few weeks ago, we all were like, oh, well, that's the end of their season. Well, they just beat a pretty good Jaguars team. Yes, Trevor Lawrence did go down with an injury, but they still had to go down and kick, I think it was the game-tying field goal to send it to overtime, and then Evan McPherson ended up winning it in overtime as well. So I just don't think, like, Jake Browning had a great game. First game against the Steelers, Like, yeah, that's gonna happen. You're gonna have not many backups can have a fantastic game right off the rip. Um, but Jake Browning, I think, kind of found his way. He has a great alpha wide receiver in Jamar Chase. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are going to be back. You got Joe Mixon, who last week proved he could still be a top 10 running back in the league. Like the offense is still set to succeed. It's just Jake Browning cannot make those. And I hate to compare him to this. You can't make those Kenny Pickett mistakes. Otherwise, that offense could be, stagnant.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, I agree with this take, especially when you look at their schedule. I think Colts. I mean, we're going to go into our picks later on, but the Colts are very beatable, and then you have the Vikings at home, very winnable. Bengals and Steelers, very winnable. Obviously, they just lost to the Patriots yesterday. I think the Chiefs at Kansas City is probably the one that they'd lose, almost guaranteed, with Jake Browning. But then you have the Browns at home when you end the season. So I mean, I think it's a very winnable schedule, but not only that, I think Jake Browning will get better and better as he's, able to get more snaps and get more practice with these, first team reps. But the only thing that I think holds me back about this offense is that I think teams will start to game plan a little bit more about Jake Browning's tendencies, which sounds weird because you wouldn't really think that'd be much of an emphasis. But I think if teams know that they're able to shut down this offense, then they're going to essentially be able to win the game because I think although the offense or the defense is pretty, average, it's a good defense. I mean, I don't know if it's a good defense, but it's solid. It's not a bottom defense. So I think teams will take their chances with that. But I think they know that if they shut down Jake Browning, Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon, then they'll be okay. So I'm just a little bit worried about teams game planning against them, especially with the schedule they have coming up with more defensive oriented teams. But with that being said, it's a very winnable schedule. So I actually fully agree with their take. You can't count the Bengals out at this point.
Yep. So PT, go ahead and bring up Sean's overreaction.
Yeah. So Shane Steichen, it will be coach of the year if the Colts make the playoffs. Now, I think for me, with Sean's take here, I'm about 80% of the way there. I think that if Shane Steichen was able to make the playoffs with this Colts team, I think he would be a top 3 runner up. I don't know if he would be coach of the year because, when we talk about coach of the year, we're talking about top accolade for a coach, a coach that was probably pegged to win it early on. And although I think that he would have a great case, I just don't know if he'd be able to beat out a couple other coaches. But with that being said, if we just want to talk about the Colts for a little bit, the Colts, I mean, once Anthony Richardson went down, Jonathan Taylor had, the preseason stuff, the contract talks, and now he's hurt again. I don't think anyone saw this team really doing much this year. I think people really saw this team as kind of like a soft rebuild year, get a high pick, get some more picks in there, and, be able to kind of give Anthony Richardson something to build around next year. And obviously we saw how good he was when he wasn't injured. But with that being said, he's made Gardner Minshew look pretty good when he's played. He's made Zach Moss look like a RB1 at times, and he's had this defense playing well at times. So, and they've been some pretty good teams as well. So, yeah, I definitely think he would have a case. I just don't know if he would be the upper echelon of coaches. Especially when you consider the fact that record matters when you're talking about coach of the year. Unless it's a team that was pretty much pegged to not make the playoffs, then making the playoffs, especially if it's in a tough division, I think that's a little bit different. But if he ends up with a slightly better record than people would have thought if they were healthy, then I just don't know if I can see him winning it.
Yeah. So how I kind of interpret coach of the year is what I do is I basically try to talk to my preseason self. And it's like, who would you give coach of the year to? So like last year, the Lions almost made the playoffs. I still gave it a Dan Campbell, I believe, but the Jaguars won their division.
Yeah.
Doug Peterson could be in there. Brian Dable. The Giants made the playoffs. Like if I would talk to my preseason self last year, it would have been like, like that's a lot of kind of good stuff. But I'd probably go Peterson, Campbell, Dable as my top 3, which is I think what the top 3 was. But Dable ended up winning. If you would have told me at the beginning of the year that the Colts would make the playoffs, without telling me what happened in the season, because what happened? They drafted a quarterback, number 4, who some people were like, they might have taken the wrong guy. They could have taken Will Levis at 4. Um, and also, Jonathan Taylor had no intentions of playing for the Colts at the beginning of the season. So I'm sitting there like, probably, like, if you tell me the Colts made the playoffs with a rookie quarterback and Jonathan Taylor probably didn't play, like, without making any assumptions, like, yeah, I could see that. So, but I think it's an overreaction just because, like, I don't know if that's enough to necessarily get that, because, like, there could be a lot of other great stories. Like, the Lions could still get the 1 seed in the NFC. That could be Dan Campbell's award too. So
Don't ruin my take because it's a perfect segue into it. I think that the team, you can go ahead and reveal my take. I think the team
all right.
that has a better reason to win Coach of the Year for D'Amico Ryans is because not only did they do everything that you said, they drafted a rookie quarterback. They didn't even have their they didn't have their starting running back throughout the season with Damian Pierce. They had Devin Singletary, taking a lot of that load off, and their best receiver was Tank Dell, another rookie. And I think when you look at expectations before the season started, who had the Texans being in the position that they're in right now? Who had C.J. Stroud being this good? Who had Devin Singletary as being pretty much the RB1?
I will say that I had them at like 6 or 7 wins, but not making the playoffs
No, we
by any
did
means.
too. No, we
Yeah.
both agreed that we like their offseason additions. We like Dalton Schultz. He's going to be out this week, but yeah, we like their offseason additions, and we like their defense. So, but not only that though, but D'Amico Ryan's also in his first year as rookie head coach. So, I just think that when you talk about jumps with them being a bottom 4 team last year to going to possibly making the playoffs, currently in the 7 seed right now, above the Bengals, above the Bills. I think that speaks a lot to how consistent this team can be. And we've just seen a great story with CJ Stroud, and we've seen so many consistent offensive drives by CJ Stroud to lead them to a win that matters to this team, and ultimately making the playoffs. And I really hope the Texans make the playoffs. I like CJ Stroud a lot. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL, actually. And yeah, I hope D'Amico Ryans wins Rookie of the Year, or Coach of the Year. But yeah, I think they'll make the playoffs because they're just that consistent.
Yeah, and if both of these teams make the playoffs, like, it's probably going to come down to one of those 2 coaches. Like, there could be a lot of other guys that could throw their name in the ring, but I mean, like, you go from having the second worst record in the NFL, basically tied for last,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and you go and make the playoffs. Which, here's the thing: if the Jaguars are, like, if they fall apart without Trevor Lawrence, they could win this division. They did beat the
Yeah.
Jaguars already once, so it's tied 1-1. I don't know who owns the tiebreaker. I think that could still be decided at some point. But,
Mm-hmm.
like, this division could technically be the Texans too. So not only that, but I mean the Colts still could too. But I think they need a little bit more help since they're 6-6. So, all right. So that wraps up the Overreaction Monday statements. We'll now go into our upsets, double downs, and picks. So we're going to start with Zeke's upset of the week. It's the Vikings over the Raiders. Now, I don't know really how much of an upset this could be, but the Raiders have been playing fairly well, other than, the second half of that Chiefs game. They've been playing pretty good. I mean, they were right with the Dolphins the entire game. They beat the Jets, they beat the Giants. But he's the only one going with the Vikings. All 3 of us going with the Raiders here.
Yeah, I think the Raiders defense has actually stepped up a lot. I think that a lot of the time, and even you'll probably agree with this, Sam, I think a lot of the time the Raiders as a whole, their defense kind of gets a lot of the blame when a lot of the issues are on the offense throughout the year. But I think this defense is going to give this Vikings team problems because, I don't see enough consistency with this offense to think that they're going to be able to win games, and not even win games, but really win games by a large margin. And I think the Raiders are just going to be better at being able to get those tight wins over the Raiders. Especially when you consider the Raiders are going to be at home. I know Justin Jefferson is coming back, but feel like, as weird as it sounds, Justin Jefferson may even, kind of negatively affect this offense a little bit because, they're just not used to having him for so long, especially with Kirk being down. So, but yeah, I have the Raiders winning this one. I think the defense has a good game.
Definitely. My upset of the week, I'm going with the Buccaneers over the Falcons. Also, not a huge upset here, but the Falcons are at the top of the division. Zeke also, once again, going with the Falcons. We're all going with the Buccaneers. I just, this game about this last week about the 49ers and Eagles, the game meant just a little bit more to the 49ers, and the 49ers played like it, but with how they beat the Eagles. Like I said, the Eagles can afford to have a loss here. Now they have to beat the Cowboys. Now that's a must-win game. We'll talk about that here shortly. But I feel like if the Buccaneers really want to make the playoffs, because here's the thing, Eagles can still get in as a wild card, regardless. Can the Buccaneers get in as a wild card if they lose this game? Probably not. They would need a lot of stuff to go their way, especially because they have one of the harder schedules, especially in that NFC South down the stretch, where the Falcons have one of the easier ones.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm going with the Buccaneers, just because this team has a lot more to play for than the Falcons currently do.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say I agree with everything you said, man. And a couple things I would want to add to that. I mean, I don't think in the NFC South you really see sweeps that much. I think, if we talk about maybe the last 2 or 3 years, because obviously historically with, how much better these teams have been historically, I think it's a little bit hard to compare. But when you talk about these last couple years, it's just really hard to sweep these teams because they're so neck and neck talent wise. And so, obviously the Falcons won the last one. I think the Buccaneers beat the Falcons at home, making that 1-1 kind of a clean sweep. And obviously, like you said, it means a little bit more to them. The other thing I want to add to this is that AJ Terrell is probably going to be out with concussion. Grady Jarrett is also going to be out. He's obviously season ending. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Nate Landman, also our starting right linebacker, is going to be out as well. So, I mean, the offense is pretty much going to have to be clicking on this Buccaneers defense. And I think this Buccaneers defense has got a little bit squishy over the past few weeks, but I still don't think it's a defense you can take lightly. And I have the Buccaneers winning, by a slight margin, probably 3 points.
Sean's upset of the week is the Cowboys over the Eagles. And guess what, PT? A conflict of interest that doesn't include you and Zeke. So it's Zeke's going back to the Eagles with the double down. We got a 2-2 split here. And Zeke and I are going with the Eagles, and you and Sean are going with the Cowboys. Real fast, let me see. When did they play earlier this year? Was it week?
I think it was
week 9?
Yeah.
It's you and Sean picked the Cowboys week 9 too.
Yeah.
So if you guys are wrong again, I swear, you guys just need to start picking the Eagles against the Cowboys. But yeah, I'm going with the Cowboys here. I mean, we know why Zeke's going with going with the Eagles. I'm going with the Eagles as well. I just think that the Eagles needed a rude awakening. You could say that the Eagles was like I said last week, one bad call, one bad mistake by Jalen Hurts away from winning that game against the Jets. You can't make an excuse for last week. You needed that slap in the face to be like, hey, like we're not all high and mighty. We got some work to do. They beat the Cowboys here. They can almost safely assume that role of winning the division. 1 seed, you can't slip up. But the Cowboys I just think the Eagles just have too much talent. Just Jalen is just a little bit more better than Dak. Swift is just a little bit better than Pollard, and AJ Brown is just a little bit better than Lamb, and I think that's just kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, man, I can't disagree with anything you said as far as this matchup goes, but I mean, like you said before, I'll agree with what you said on the other one as well. I think the Cowboys just have a little bit more meaning to this game than the Eagles do. I think the Eagles realize that even if they lose this game, it probably doesn't mean much to them in the grand scheme of things. But I'm just gonna, touch back on what I said before. I think it's really rare for a team of these two calibers to sweep each other. When teams are so close to each other, it's just like the NBA. It's really hard to beat a team back to back. And so yeah, man, I just think that the Cowboys are going to even it up. And although I don't think the Eagles really care that much, I think if the Cowboys lose and you drop 2-0 to your division rival and the team that you'd face probably in the championship, in the NFC Championship, if you get that far, I think it's a must win, not only for them for their standings, but mentality wise, mental wise, they need to win this game. They need to know that they can beat the Eagles.
Yeah. So, PT, your upset of the week?
Yeah, I'm taking Colts over Bengals. Kind of, I guess touching over kind of what Sean's overreaction was with Shane Steichen winning, Coach of the Year. Um, I think that the Bengals obviously having a really good win last week. I think they'll come down to earth a little bit this week, and although I think they're going to have a pretty decent schedule going out this season, I think this is going to be, besides the Chiefs game, their second hardest game. I think the Colts are kind of rolling right now. I think honestly, not having Jonathan Taylor last week was kind of beneficial for them because they really knew who their RB1 was. They knew they could rely on Zach Moss, and Gardner Minshew is kind of doing his thing right now, and so I just feel like they have really good rhythm. And I think honestly getting rid of Darius Leonard was actually kind of a plus too, because I feel like he was kind of I mean he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but I feel like he was kind of, I guess mentality wise, holding this team back from progressing to the kind of the new era of what they want to be. And he was kind of, still living in that old era. So I think mentality wise, or attitude wise, I think they'll be there.
Yeah, and I like the way that the direction that the Colts are trending, but I really think that, the Bengals are just hitting their stride. I mean, they put up a decent amount of points against a good Jaguars team, and this team, I think after losing to the Steelers probably felt deflated. And if they would have lost to the Jaguars, their season was done. But now I feel like they have some energy. And, this team, talent wise, I feel like the Bengals blow them out of the water, on offense and defense. It's just the question of Jake Browning. Can Jake Browning be a good enough quarterback to win this game and then gain more confidence because like they're circling that week 17 matchup against the Chiefs. Like we'll know by then if this Bengals team is a legit playoff contender or not. And who knows, it might come down to the Bengals need to win that game to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, very true.
So now my double down for the week, I have the Packers over the Giants. So 2 weeks ago, I doubled down on the Lions over the Packers, and they proved me wrong. They upset them on Thanksgiving. That's my fault for picking the Lions on Thanksgiving. All right, I guess sports analysts tell you over the time, don't pick the Lions on Thanksgiving. Whatever. So then last week on Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs and Packers were playing. I picked the Chiefs against the Packers. Packers are one of the hottest teams in the NFC right now. Winning 2 games, getting some wild card momentum. And this is a Giants team that they should beat. Should is the key word. Jair might be back. I think Quay Walker should be back. Rashad Gary, all could be back. That's your top defensive lineman, top linebacker, top defensive back. That can all be back. And if they're all back, then you should win that game, hands down. But if none of them come back, you should still be able to win against Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
And we all picked the Packers here, so I feel like we can all kind of agree with that statement, unless if you have a different reasoning that you're going with the Packers.
No, I mean I pretty much agree with everything you said. I just can't trust this Giants offense with Tommy DeVito at quarterback.
Right. And their only win with him was against a very hot and cold Commanders team. Sean's double down for the week is the Dolphins over the Titans. Another Monday night game. We're all going with the Dolphins here. I just, the Dolphins beat any team that's below 500, and well, guess what? Titans are now still under 500. I think it just, history is just repeating itself.
Yeah, it's a game the Dolphins shouldn't lose. I think finally teams are kind of getting a read on Will Levis and just being able to stop him and then limit the rest of the offense and Derrick Henry. That defense just really isn't good enough to hold up against some of the better offenses like the Dolphins.
Yeah. And then PT, you're double down?
Yeah, I got the Saints and Panthers. What can I say about the Panthers, man? I mean, I like that they fired Frank Reich, and I think that Bryce Young. I mean, I say this every week, and I think you kind of agree with me for the most part. But I think Bryce Young can really be a good quarterback in this league. But it's kind of obvious they took the wrong quarterback at this point. And this offense just really has no rhythm whenever they play. They don't have an alpha wide receiver. They don't have an alpha running back. Their offensive line is spotty. Their defense in times can hold up, but it's just not going to be enough when you face a team like the Saints, where I don't care if they have Derek Carr or Jameis Winston, they're going to be able to put up 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also have Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave on the field at all times. So it should be a pretty easy win for the Saints. But I was right about the Panthers-Buccaneers last game. I said, don't be surprised if it's a close game, and it came down to the last 5 minutes. So, but no, I mean, this game isn't going to be close, I don't think.
Yeah. We all went with the Saints here. I agree with everything you say. Derek Carr, no Carr, clown Carr. Give me the Saints. So that wraps up our upsets and double downs. We'll just go into the rest of our picks. Starting off with the Lions and Bears, a noon Central Time kickoff. We all went with the Lions. PT, go ahead and explain the reasoning.
Yeah, this is gonna be a whooping. The Lions, obviously they got that bounce back win last week, but it wasn't quite the bounce back that they were hoping for at the end of the game. I mean, they came out really strong, but they realized, I think, last game that if they play really lax like that in the second half, they can lose to anybody. And I mean, obviously, the Saints team is not a bad team. We compare them to the Bears and you compare them to the Panthers and whatnot. But they're a team that can easily win the game if, one, Derek Carr is playing, and two, if the Lions defense doesn't come out like they should. So I feel like this is going to be a game where the Lions really want to make a statement to the rest of the NFC. Like, last game, yeah, we took our foot off the gas, but this game, it's all gas, no brakes. We're going to put up 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and allow less than 18 points.
Yeah, I can agree with all of that. The next one, the Jaguars and Browns. 3 of us agree, and the 3 of us are going with the Browns. PT going with the Jaguars. So I'll let you go first here.
This one was tough for me, but I just can't trust the Browns to be consistent enough to be a good team like Jaguars. And I know what you're going to say. Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be out. Their backup quarterback is also probably going to be out. Why are you taking the Jaguars? I think, and I don't have any inside information, okay? But I think Trevor Lawrence plays on that ankle sprain. But I think he is very limited. But I think he is able to do enough with his arm that they're going to be able to win this game by a very slim margin. And I think the rest of the team is going to elevate Trevor Lawrence because he's been elevating them all season. I think they're going to pay him back for this game, and they're going to let Trevor Lawrence be healthy, clean in the pocket.
All right, let me see here. What's Trev?
Questionable.
Okay, so I guess he hasn't been ruled out. So I guess we got 2 days.
He's been on the practice field.
So here's the thing. I'm going under the assumption that the Jaguars are going to start CJ Beathard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. As much as I want to say that the Jaguars are just a way better team than the Browns, because they are, you can't hand the ball to Travis Etienne 30 times when you have a guy like Myles Garrett on that defensive line. And
True.
Some pretty good Zadarius Smith, I think. Is that who from the Vikings that is a linebacker on that team. Like they got a good
They got a good
defense.
defense. Yeah.
But what it comes down to, in my opinion, is do we know what this Browns offense is with backup quarterbacks, and do we know what the Jaguars are with their backup quarterback? We don't know what the Jaguars are with their backup quarterback. We know what the Browns can do with theirs. So like
Correct.
the Browns are running their game that they've been running for almost all season, essentially, because of Deshaun Watson having injuries. So that's why I'm taking the Browns, but I expect this to be a very close game. But if CJ Beathard can play good, like, and not even good, decent. If he plays decent, they win this game.
Yeah, I can buy it.
Next is the Texans Jets.
I'll lead. I'll lead with this one. I'll lead
Go
with this
ahead.
one because my team just played them last week, and I didn't realize how this Jets team operates. I don't know if I've ever seen a worse quarterback rotation in the last 2 years of watching football. Obviously, it's hard to go back, 10 years, but you lose Aaron Rodgers, obviously the first week of the season. Zach Wilson has a blunder whenever he plays, so you put in what was his name? I can't even remember his name. The third string.
Tim Boyle.
Tim Boyle. You put in Tim Boyle. He is unable to make any swing screen passes or any outside, 5-yard passes, any check downs. He just really can't do it. And then he throws an interception to Jesse Bates. Love it. So then they put in Trevor Siemian. He pretty much does the same thing, except he loses the game because he gets, strip sacked. And one of those should have been a touchdown to the house. I feel so bad for Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And as well, Dalvin Cook is probably one of the worst backup running backs in the league this year because he doesn't get any yards and he fumbles the ball. This defense can only do so much, but if Desmond Ridder is able to beat this team, then I think CJ Stroud is going to probably have a field day. So that's why I'm taking the Texans.
Yeah, and honestly, like the Jets defense didn't really play like spectacular. Like it was just more of the Falcons offense just wasn't clicking. Like I said last week that the Falcons should have like 50 rushes. I don't even know how many they had. They should have controlled the clock. It's cold. It's New York. It was
It was
raining.
raining. Yeah.
Like everything's telling you to run the dang ball. And, I'm going to look it up real fast. I'll look it up on here.
Yeah.
Jets. Look and see how.
I feel like it's just a coaching issue, because I feel like when we were watching that game, we knew that when the running was happening, we got positive yards a lot of the time.
Yeah. It's just there was so many negative rushes that countered. Like, I mean, the safety. You were at like the 3-yard line. Yeah, he got tackled 3 to 4 yards into the end zone.
Yeah.
So 18-8, which makes that 26, 31, 34 rushes. And the time of possession, you actually lost the time of possession by 26 seconds.
Which is crazy.
Which is, insane. So should have just ran the ball. And here's the thing is like the Texans aren't the best running team, but if they have Dameon Pierce and
Singletary
and Singletary, then they should be fine. CJ can also run the ball a little bit too. So I like the Texans here. The Jets, I don't even know who they're going to be starting. Like they have 3 guys.
Well, I think they announced Zach Wilson will be starting, but that doesn't give me any extra confidence.
I was going to say, like, yeah, you have 3 options, and none of them are a good one.
Yeah.
or the right one.
Yeah, exactly.
Next is the Rams-Ravens. We all went with the Ravens here. The Ravens, have a really good chance to go and get the 1 seed with the Chiefs losing this last week. The Dolphins could still slip up one more game. Ravens just got to take care of business, and this is a take care of business game. And I think that Lamar is trying to make some hype for an MVP run. Just became the highest paid quarterback this offseason. And this is a game where you can put up numbers.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to say about this game really. I feel like, in my humble opinion, I think this is the most blah game of the week. I just don't really have much interest in it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Seahawks 49ers. We all went with the 49ers. P, you can take this one.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks, they can play well, against certain teams. Obviously, last week was kind of a brutal loss to the Cowboys because they put up great stats. It was a very high scoring game. But the 49ers are just a better team. They're getting healthy. They're going to be at home. Yeah, I mean, I just have full confidence 49ers are going to start hitting their stride because they realize that it's kind of later in the season at this point. And the more wins they get closer to the playoffs, the more momentum they're going to be able to get. So I got the 49ers at home.
Then the Bills Chiefs. Zeke's going with the Bills here. We're all going with the Chiefs. I just got the notification, and I might have gotten it earlier, but just didn't see it. Isaiah Pacheco was out.
Yeah.
I really want to change my pick, but
You can because the games haven't happened yet.
No, but here's the thing. I have said this so many times. How often do the Chiefs lose 2 in a row? It's rare. It can't happen, right? It just can't. Not against the Bills, who are playing bad. So I'm keeping the Chiefs. But here's the thing.
Go ahead.
But here's the thing: is like, if they have 0 run game with Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Jerick McKinnon, like, I don't know how long Pacheco might be out, because that Pacheco is, a good reason why they are functioning as an offense, because it's not the receivers. But maybe these next few weeks could be very tough to pick the Chiefs if Pacheco is out longer.
Yeah, I just think that, not only, like you said, how often do the Chiefs lose 2 in a row, but how often do the Chiefs lose 2 in a row where the second game is at home, against a team that really they chemistry wise are better than right now. I don't think the Bills are really where they want to be at. I feel like they're kind of down in the slumps right now. Obviously, this game probably means a little bit more to them because they know if they win this game, then they can have a little good boost to making the playoffs. But this Bills team, man, it's just not the same. And I I do think Pacheco not playing kind of matters, but I feel like Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are good enough to kind of work around it, especially because it got announced today. They'll have the whole 3 days to game plan. So, yeah, I got the Chiefs still.
Yep. And then the last one, the Broncos and Chargers. We got a 2-2 split here, and we got you and Zeke going with the Chargers, while Sean and I are going with the Broncos. So please, PT, I know I'm letting you go first a lot today, but I really want to know why you're picking the Chargers, who beat the Patriots 6-0 over the Broncos, one of the hottest teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I just feel like, and this might be crazy. I know it might be crazy. It's just a hunch I have, but I feel like it's just a matter of time until the Chargers have that type of game where they explode and they're like, yeah, this is us. This is the real us. Obviously, it's not. They're frauds, but I think I think that they're bound to have one of those games where they can put up 28 because they have the weapons. They do. They have the weapons to do it, and I don't care who their coach is. They have the weapons to do it. I don't care if Nathaniel Hackett is their offensive coordinator. They have Justin Herbert. They got Keenan Allen. They got Austin Eckler. They got Rashawn Slater on that line. They got a good defense. They should be able to put up points and have the offensive possessions. But it just seems like every week they pull the Chargers and they just don't do anything. And I feel like doing that against the Patriots, because I feel like a lot of the time when they have those type of games against good teams, you can say, oh, well, this team had Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. Oh, this team had so-and-so. This team. You do that to the Patriots. You put up 6 points against the Patriots. something's wrong. You got to change something. Something's got to change. There's got to be a wake-up call in the locker room. Quentin Johnson needs to grow up. Keenan Allen needs to catch balls, and Austin Eckler needs to stop fumbling the ball.
Yeah, I think, and I might need to be stat checked on this. I'll do that off air. But I think that was the last game that the Patriots defense gave up 0 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure was the Super Bowl against the Rams.
Mm.
So that's a long time.
Yeah,
that happened.
I would need to see
4.5
that
years ago.
stat check, but that'd be kind of crazy. Yeah.
Because I mean, first of all, it's hard to play an entire game and not give up a touchdown. But
Yeah.
like, with how bad the Steelers have been, or sorry, not the Steelers, the Patriots have been the last 3 years, really. You could maybe even say maybe 4. But yeah, I am concerned about this Chargers team. I am just praying until they fire Brandon Staley. It's coming any day now. Like, maybe they can fire him the day of the game.
Maybe they're just waiting until the end of the season.
Yeah, maybe they see what the other teams have done. Like the Raiders are 2-2 since firing their head coach. Panthers are 0-1, but they almost beat the Bucks. Maybe they're like, maybe it's a better tank move to keep our shitty coach and then fire him.
Exactly. I think at this point they kind of just saw it as like kind of a lost season, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs as is, so they're probably just going to try to get that higher pick at this point. I mean, I don't know. They're such a weird team, and I feel like he should have been fired by now because they have more talent than 65-70% of the teams in the NFL. But yeah.
And if they lose this game, then you can almost write them off as being last in that division.
Yeah.
With a Broncos team that could maybe make the playoffs and a Raiders team that they just have way more momentum, like superstars and stars than. Yeah. So, so that wraps up our Week 14 picks, previews, and overreaction statements. So, P, I always ask you every week, well, when's it coming? Because you always say there's a lot of season left, but we're getting close to the end.
I don't think that I have a great chance to be first, but I think I can still catch up to you guys, or at least Sean. I cannot finish last, but at this point, I really just want to have a solid record. At the end of the season, I think because I've said this before. I think having a solid prediction record is very meaningful. I mean, it's meaningful to me personally because I think that says a lot about how you analyze the game and how you can kind of predict the outcome of games, because the better record you have, the more accurate you're hypothetically going to be in other games as well going into the future. So I just want to have a good record. If I finish last, I finish last, but I think I could still be up there.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for you. I'm not rooting for you to pass me, but I'm rooting for you.
I mean, this could easily change,
I mean, look, if we go back, so there's 5 weeks left. So let's go back 5 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So week 8. Like, look at the standings. Zeke had 93. I had 91. You had 90. No, you were third because it changed. So it was.
Okay.
I mean, it was. We were all
thanks,
right
Sam.
next
I
to
was
each
third,
other.
not fourth. Thanks.
Hey, but look! I had the worst. I had the worst predictions, and that was by 5 points. And now I'm the best. Or tied. No, I'm 1 behind Sean for the best. So it's just you got to get the upsets and double downs, bro.
Well, week 8, even then I had the best prediction. So or the win-loss record. So hey, I would take it if I could get back there.
That's right. But once again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP. Follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. I've been Sam Holcroft.
I'm Payton Thompson.
Thanks for listening.